All right. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, FBDev guys. Thanks, Navya. Thanks, Rohit. So let's get started. Can you guys just drop a yes if you can hear me okay? And we'll get started. All right. So let's get started. Productization of services. Before I jump onto the topic, let me introduce myself. I'm Meraj Faheem. I have been an entrepreneur for about 11 years now, long journey. And along the way, I have built about 4 startups, mostly services ones, but building a product company has been one of my major ambitions, you could say. My very first company was a product company. It was into financial trading systems, and that was something that was really close to my heart, and I really believed that would be big. But then I exited that company, sold it, and then went on to do quite a few things. But then the whole ambition part of building a product company has been with me for a while now. Currently, I run the Hacking School. I'm the founder at the Hacking School. The Hacking School started in the year 2013, 2014. The Hacking School is India's first coding boot camp. We then launched Code.in last year. We are trying to take the whole offline coding bootcamp model online, and that is where that's where I have been always thinking about how do you actually advertise something like a classroom. A classroom is a group of people: teachers, students, blackboard. Concepts, me speaking, teachers speaking to students, and all of that. So we've been thinking a lot for a while now on how do you productize something that has been in a physical building, inside a brick and mortar space for a really long time, right? The whole concept of schools, the whole concept of universities, the whole concept of a physical classroom has been there for a really long time, and we were trying to see how do you change that. Not essentially changing it, but then taking it online. How do you productize it? And mainly, why do you have to productize it? Why do you want to do productize it? I will take you guys through the whole process of it, and that's the story, and that's the whole of today's session. Um, So the basic idea of why do we want to productize a service is majorly to be able to cater a larger section of the market, to actually broaden your horizon, to be able to serve more people, to be able to do more things in less time with less capacity, and all of that, right? Technically, that is the whole mindset behind productizing a particular service. But then if you look at, if we are talking about things today, if we are talking about things right now, the whole scenario is different. We are living through a pandemic. We are going through a pandemic, and technically, the whole world had to shut down for good 3 months. That's a really long time for anything to shut out, for anything to actually uh, just go out of existence, right? People didn't go to offices. There were restaurants who had to shut down. There were services that that had to literally shut down. People could not go to offices. People, kids did not go to school. Teachers did not go to school. The school management had a really tough time managing the businesses throughout the whole thing. And that actually, re-emphasized the whole factor of why do we need to productize service, or at least productizing the most important engine of, your business, which might be service dependent or which might be service heavy right now at the moment as we speak. And that actually, so I have had the opportunity to speak, to a lot of at a lot of webinars through the pandemic, and this is one phrase that I think has stuck with me, which is productization of service. And this is something that I have been urging people to do that. And more importantly, the reward of productizing your services is extremely high. If you look at this, very simple graph, definitely as the complexity of your product goes up, as the complexity of what you want to do, of what you want to deliver goes up, the reward goes up as well. But if you look at the bottom the bottom left quadrant, the problem is the complexity and the reward for services. That's your services quadrant, and the complexity and the reward for us to be in services quadrant is extremely low. That's you are being put at the extremely bottom of the whole pyramid, and that's the whole point. And that's exactly why I believe we have to get a little bit curious about how can we productize our services, get a little bit ambitious about how do we productize our services, how do we increase the reward for whatever we are doing. Definitely there is complexity, but how do we solve the problem? How can we simplify the problems? And this is again something that I'll be taking you guys through the session today. All right. So primarily, this is one picture that defines what differentiates, or what exactly being a product-driven business and what a service-driven business looks like. If you look at this very simple slide, product-driven business is obviously driven by a product, but the service-driven business is something that is driven by a set of people. It's people dependent, it's human dependent. So usually you have a few set of people who are doing a few things, right? So you divide, there is distribution of labor, there is distribution of duties, roles and responsibilities, dependencies, and lots of variable factors the moment you get a human being into the equation. Now, am I talking about removing human beings from the equation? No, hell no. You cannot, remove people from the equation 100%. There has to be, there will always be some amount of human intervention involved, and that's good. It has to be there. It has to be there. It has to be there, and it will be there. But the whole problem, comes into picture when the equation becomes human dependent, which means, let's say you have a service and you run a physical store, and if your sales boy or your sales girl doesn't show up on a certain day, and let's say that's your weekend and you get a lot of customers that day, then technically you will be serving your ability to serve your customers goes down, right? There is the human dependency, because maybe let's say he or she was sick. As simple as that. But then we also have to realize and understand that we are a country of 1.3 billion people. 130 crore people live in India, and that's exactly why India has been service focused. India has been service first. India's industry is service oriented, and all of that. So this is one very important factor that we have to always keep in mind about why or how this is happening, why or how we are doing whatever we are doing. Or we talk about India has not produced, any great product startup. We are seeing a lot, these days, but majorly we can't, since it's happening now from, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years, but then before that, we literally, didn't even think about it. E-commerce, if you look at e-commerce, it's again, service heavy thing. But the beauty of it is we at least started digitizing in the whole shopping experience, which is nice, which is a good start, which is a great start. And I really think, startups like Flipkart and Myntra has been an inspiration for a lot of people to start thinking about things in a different direction, which becomes the most important thing there, which is what we need right now, and that's the mindset I'm talking about. We have to figure out a way that without we changing our basics, without we affecting our fundamentals, without we having to cut out jobs, are going to increase our capacity to serve more people, go global, right? Think local, go global. And the best example of this is SBI, State Bank of India. If any of you has had the chance to use the State Bank of India like 10 or 11 years ago, you might know, right? You go there for one transaction and it used to eat at least 4 hours of your day, right? You go there, the guy takes out a huge register, looks for your name, looks for your account number, does all that, whatever they do in that register, that long, big, bulky registers of theirs, and then, they take your passbook, go to the printer, put the passbook in the printer, and then it comes out with updated transaction and all of that. And then the digitization happened, right? Those registers were replaced by computers. The human beings were still there. The clerk was still there. The teller is still there. The guys are still there. It's just that the guys now learn how to operate the computer instead of operating those registers, right? And that is what we are talking about. When we productize a service, there need not be job cuts all the time. There will be job cuts, there will be a lot of upgrades and updates, but then that necessarily need not happen. And if we do it mindfully, if we have a very conscious approach to the whole digitization of your process, or the productization of your service, if we do it very consciously, we can ensure there's no job loss at all, actually, right? There need not be job loss. But more importantly, what is it going to affect? Revenue per employee shoots up, right? Which means your employees, your team, your people will be able to do more things in less time. And how do we do that? That's exactly what we are going to look in the coming slides. But then I really hope you guys understand what the mindset we are talking about, the reward that you're talking about, the ability to serve that you're talking about, ability to open yourself up and increase the dependency, increase the whole objectivity of or let's say the outcomes that are limited whenever things like processes or your services are human dependent, right? We are talking about eliminating that dependency. We are talking about opening up your shop to the world and not just to your neighborhood, right? When you have a physical store, you're serving your neighborhood, but when you have a store on internet, the world becomes your neighborhood, and that's exactly what we're talking about. So how do we do it? We again, I want to again go back and re-emphasize on thing that I'm not talking about people to exit their current businesses. I'm not talking about people to change the whole line of business that they have been. I'm not asking them to pick up an expertise that they do not have. I'm not talking about people to do something that they have no clue about. But also there is another thing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about people to start looking at things from a fresh perspective. I'm asking the people to think about things from a different perspective, from a completely different angle. I'm asking about business owners, especially the service focused one. And if I talk about service focused one, there are extremely critical, businesses that are, services heavy. For example, if you talk about, let's say, accounting services, right? So accounting services can be one of the most, taxing, laborious process. And I really think, the chartered accountants in India are extremely underrated. They're extremely underrated. They are extremely, the work that they do, the kind of, stuff that they work on is extremely underrated. And I don't think they get the recognition that they deserve. And this is something that I have experienced and realized when I started working really closely with my chartered accountant, working on my account. Things look extremely complex. But then when I started working with him, I also realized a lot of that process could be automated. A lot of the services that he or they provide can be automated, that they can be productized. It does not need people to actually deal with a lot of people, or wait for a lot of time, or it need not be human dependent. There are a lot of components in the process that need not to be human dependent. And I was not even talking about complicating things, right? If we look at our first graph, the complexity and the reward graph, I'm not even talking about complicating things. I'm talking about simplifying things, which is my point number one. How do you simplify things? How do you begin to think in the direction of converting your service into a product? And the first answer to that question is simplification of your process. Simplify the whole damn process, and it's easy. It's not even difficult, right? The problem is it becomes difficult when we start looking at things from the wrong direction. And this is something that happens a lot of times, especially when people are building a product for the very first time. They get extremely tempted to put in all the features that they have on their minds, right? And that's something I want them to stop immediately, right? Why? I'll tell you. Whenever you decide to build a product, you have to adopt the first principles thinking, right? What exactly is first principle thinking? It's extremely simple. In fact, first principle thinking forces you, or tells you that you break down a problem statement to the most simplest of forms, right? You are going to the root cause of something. You are going to the root cause of the problem. You're going to the most fundamental factor that actually became the whole equation, right? You are going to the atomic, not even atomic level, I would say, the nucleus level of the problem. The moment you drill down your problem statement to the nucleus level, you figure out, okay, this is where it all starts, right? So how do I solve this problem at this level? The moment you reach, or the moment you figure out what exactly atomic level, or what exactly it looks like at the nucleus level, that's a start. That's when you start seeing answers to it. And the whole process, like I said, and that's the point number one, which is simplification of the whole process. Look at how do you simplify it. Let's not overcomplicate it. And this is something, like I said, we are tempted to do all the time, right? We are tempted to show more than necessary steps. We are tempted to take more than necessary information. We are tempted to take more than necessary time of your customer, right? And people hate it. People don't like it. So this is exactly where products fail. And when products fail, obviously you are not going to blame your business. You're not going to blame your business model. You're not going to blame your ability to do things, but you'll be blaming the product. But the problem is not your product. The problem actually is the way you build your product, the way you thought your product, the way you broke down a problem statement that led to building of your product, right? So we have to drill down. We have to go back to the atomic level, adopt first principle thinking, and see, can I break this equation further? If I can't break this further, let's start. That's where you get started, and that's how you get started. Right, dear friends? So simplification of your problem statement is the step number one to start thinking about your product. That's one. Second, adopting numerical, fluency, and it might sound a little ironical to my family because I never liked mathematics. I honestly had this, extremely respectful disrespect to mathematics because I was not good at it for whatever reasons. But then I later realized in my engineering that mathematics is beautiful, and it was a realization, and I have been in love with it since then. Right? So the moment you start, so numerical fluency is the art of finding patterns in things, right? And mathematics, we say is the language of God, right? Like coding is the language of computers or machines. Mathematics is language of God. So you find that numbers everywhere in the universe. Universe, was put together by set of numbers, right? Fibonacci series is one of the most beautiful examples, right? And so many other things, so many other things. If we start talking about numerical fluency, then this has to be all about numerical fluency. But then what I'm talking about is the moment you simplify your process, the moment you drill down your, cut down your problem statement into the most simplest of the forms, start looking for patterns. Okay, start looking to, back your assumption with numbers, right? Everything starts with your gut, right? Your gut tells you, what you have to do, what you should be doing, right? That's where it all starts. When it starts there, you have to find numbers. You have to get data to back up your findings. You have to start finding patterns. Okay, this is something that my customer has been doing since the beginning of the transaction, or this is a pattern that every customer follows. This is a pattern that every customer follows, and the transaction fails, so on and so forth, right? The moment you start doing it, you start doing it more and more. Eventually, you start seeing numbers everywhere. You start, looking at, delivering value everywhere. You start looking at things everywhere, and the whole process of, you finding these patterns in every problem statement, you finding solution in numbers is addictive. This process is extremely addictive. When I say this process is extremely addictive, that's exactly where you become fluent with numbers. And the moment you start, when you gain this numerical fluency, the whole process of, finding solutions to answers becomes an art more than science, right? You start coming up with a solution like this, right? The problem statements come to you, and you start looking at patterns. And the beauty of all of this, my dear friends, is the moment you start, looking at patterns, the moment you start reducing patterns in, a process, you can productize it. That's the start number one of that's the step number one of productization of any service, right? You see a pattern, you see you can automate it, you see, what product can you build on top of it that will, save you x percentage of time, that will let you do more things in less time, that lets you do better things in less time, that lets you do bigger things in less time, that will let you make more, you know uh, interesting. All of this becomes nice and easy. All of that is automated, and all typically you will sit back and looking at the numbers going up because the product is doing selling for you. It's no more. It's not human dependent anymore. There is no component of other services that are going to eat up your profits, eat up your margin, eat up your time, eat up your efficiency, or any anything else, right? So that's exactly where innovation component comes into the picture as well. The last point, another very important aspect, after you have, let's say, broken down your problem statement to the atomic level, you have simplified the whole equation, you started gaining the numerical fluency, and you have started looking at the patterns, and you have found the mathematical proof for the patterns that you've been looking at, and all of that. Another super important thing comes in when you start inverting your problem statements. A lot of times, and I say this from my own personal experience. I have been talking to startups for a really long time now. I can say more than 7, 8, 9 years, right? Spent in the in the ecosystem, with a lot of companies, with a lot of startups, talking to a lot of founders, a lot of them great and accomplished founders. One of the most important things that I also have realized, especially talking to new entrepreneurs, first time founders, first gen founders, right? They look at things from a completely different point. I'm not saying wrong angle, I'm saying a different angle. And that might be the problem, in the first place. And that's, I think, a lot of time that becomes the problem number one. I'll tell you why. We never think from the user perspective, right? And that's exactly where the problem starts. We believe there is a problem statement, we assume there is a problem statement, and then we start building a solution or a service or a product for it. We do not go and talk to people. We do not have the habit, or we do not believe in getting a validation for what they're thinking. Usually emotions take the better side of it, and that's exactly where the whole problem starts, right? So inverting your problem statements is one of the most important and critical things that you can adopt. The moment you come to a conclusion that you have reduced, that this is the problem statement, and this is what I believe we have to be doing, just invert it, right? Go on the other side of the table, just get on the other side of the things and start looking at things, and start validating things, right? Never look at from the perspective of the guy who's building the product. Look at from the guy who will be using the product. Go and in fact talk to the guy who's going to use your product, because most of the times, 90% of the times, especially if you're building complex products, your end user might not be thinking, or might not be on the same page as you are. So inverting your thought process, inverting the whole process of deducing your solution, or the pattern that you might have come up with based on the numbers that you have looked at, it might be a good or a great idea, in fact, to invert it, right? Look at from a completely different perspective, completely go on the other side of the table and start looking at things, or go and talk to people who are on the other side of the people. If you can't find them, you have to do it yourself, and you have to do that religiously. You cannot be cheating with this process. The moment you cheat with any of these three things, the moment you cheat with simplification of things, you believe no, I cannot simplify it further, and the moment I simplify it further, it makes no sense. If it's not making sense, then that's your answer. It's not going to make sense, so you have to rethink, right? If the numbers that you have does not make sense, then that's your answer. It does not make sense, and you have to go back and rethink the process. You have to rethink about the problem statement. It might not be worth doing it at all, but if you ignore it, if you cheat on it, then technically it will be you who it's you who is at loss, and essentially it might not be worth building whatever you want to build. And same is the process with inverting your problem statement. If you cannot invert honestly, then if you are wanting to not look on one side of the things, because you might not want to, because you don't want to see the answer that you think you will be seeing, right? Then technically you're cheating with yourself, and that might not help. And these three, things, my dear friend, lay the foundation of, building a very strong, a very important, a product that people love. These are the three things, and the moment you start lay your foundation with these three things, you are aiming at north. So how do you, now let's say you have done, you have taken the first three steps, you have figured out what you want to do, what you have figured out how you want to do it, you have figured out, the most simplest way to do it, you have, spoken to people, you have figured out, the pattern, and now how to automate it. What exactly do you get started with? How do you figure out a feature? How do you figure out, let's say, a platform? How do you figure out, let's say, a product? How do you figure out, let's say, a channel to deliver things? How do you make it happen? How do you actually execute it? This is this becomes the next step. And what I want you guys to do is take pen and a paper and sit down with all these points. Like we had on the previous slide, you sit down and figure out, how do I simplify? Is this going to be the most simplified version of your problem statement? Then write it down, right? You figuring out a pattern in your problem statements, write it down, right? You believe you have inverted the problem statement, write it down, right? Once you do that, that becomes the foundation of your product. The moment you have laid the foundation of your product, you will automatically and inherently start feeling confident about the whole process. You will start feeling confident about the whole outcome of it, right? And that's my next slide. Your product, your feature, your platform, whatever you're going to build has to be outcome focused. And we are going to break it down into three super simple things. First is the functional outcome of your product. Second is the emotional outcome of your product. Third is the social outcome of your product, right? And I'll go back and use the same example as that of my CA. You guys might have heard about clear tax. Clear tax. I first used clear tax, I think, in the year 2011 or 2012, and I fell in love with the service, right? And I'm using the word service. But how did that service happen? How did the whole thing came into being? I was looking at submitting a Form 16 that I got, and I had no clue what a Form 16 looked like. I had no clue what Form 16 even meant. So what everybody does, I did that. I went to Google and started looking for what do you do with a Form 16. And then ClearTax came up with a blog article. I went there. It was a super simple page which asked me to upload my Form 16. The moment I uploaded my Form 16, the guy ClearTax processed it in the backend, and it showed me this is the amount of refund that you are eligible for. All you have to do is do da 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 da, and then take a printout, mail it to the department. I was blown away with it. Right now, traditionally, how did this process happen before? You send your Form 16 to a guy, the guy processes it and does all that part, and it usually takes a day or two, and you follow up with the guy, or the guy follows up with you, and all of that, right? Now all of this was replaced by a service, because this process could be automated, and it's a standard process. Any standard process that can be automated, that has a pattern, I think it's extremely sinful for us to have a guy and make him do that. And mind you, I'm not talking about cutting on jobs. I'm talking about using people to do greater things. I'm talking about putting people at greater jobs, right? Making them do things that machines can't do. We should not be doing things that machines can do, and machines should not be doing things, and machines can't do things that humans can do. like writing code, right? So technically, that is what I'm talking about. So the functional outcome of the whole process was I now exactly know what's the kind of refund I'll be getting, right? And the Form 16 was processed. That's the functional outcome of the product. Now, the emotional outcome of the product, I became an instant fan of it. I loved it so much. And then I started reading about this company, and turns out ClearTax was one of the first companies to be incubated at Y Combinator. And Y Combinator is my favorite incubator. And I was like, wow, now it all makes sense, right? Why did I look at it before? Why did I not know about it before? And then I started looking at the other products that ClearTax had, other services that ClearTax provided, and I instantly became a fan of its services. Not just fan, I think I went out and I had a team of about 20-25 people. I went and told about this beautiful service to all of them. I became a free ambassador of this beautiful product, right? I now started becoming an ambassador of it, right? The emotional connection with ClearText. Now, there were a lot of people who saw errors and this and that. I was taking the pain and the effort to explain them the process, to help them get it right, because I got it right in the first go, right? Now, that's the emotional outcome. Your products should be able to establish that emotional connect, because without an emotional connect, the process, the product, the service, or whatever it is, it's going to be 100% transactional. 100% transactional, right? So out of the three most important outcomes, I think emotional outcome is going to be one of the most critical forms of outcomes that you also have to aim for. Look at it like your barber. You can go and get your hair cut anywhere, right? But then you go to a particular barber because he or she makes you feel comfortable. He or she knows you by your name, right? Whenever you go there, he might be like, Meraj sir, how are you? Long time. You grew your hair or you grew your beard. What's up? Having that little conversation, right? Establishing an emotional connect. How do you build that into your product? This is something that, again, numerical fluency will help you out with it. Look at the pattern. Look at things where you can introduce emotional connection. Now, one of the most and the best ways to do that is by delivering a UX, delivering a UI which is effortless, that will make your user not just your loyal user, but also an ambassador or a fan of your product and service. This is something that you'll have to do. Lastly, the social outcome of it. People like to be associated with aspirational brands, right? People like to be associated with things that are exclusive. People like to be associated with things that have broader objective, or broader result. Not just like you might go out and, let's say, you go to a juice center, and the juice center, like any other juice center, makes great juice, but then you might go to a juice center who uses organic products, right? When I say organic products, organic is good for your health, but what's the social outcome of it? Maybe the guy does not use plastic. Now, that's a social outcome, and that's also establishing an emotional connect. You automatically get a feeling that this guy thinks more about more than just his business. This guy thinks more than his own product or service. This guy thinks about environment. This guy thinks about climate. This guy thinks about our society. This guy thinks about country and all of that, right? We would never deal with a brand. We would never deal with somebody who does not have a social connection, who does not have a social objective in mind. We, as a deeply rooted traditional society, we look for it, we long for it. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about India and Indians. I'm talking about literally everybody, right? When Trump came into picture, when Trump was nominating himself, he said one simple thing: let's make America great again, right? He focused on making America great again, right? And all the policies, while it's controversial and debatable, what he was doing is right or wrong, we are not going to discuss that. What we're talking about is what he was offering has a social connect with it, right? Companies, going out and donating things in times of, crisis. Companies going out of the way to do things not just for their company and employees, but also, let's say, others in the society, and so many other things like that. If your product, focuses on, building or making these three things happen, the first is the functional outcome, second is the emotional outcome, and the third, the social outcome. You have to consciously work on, delivering on these three outcomes as soon as possible in as few steps as possible. If you do that, you can make things happen. If you do that, you are there. People are going to love your product. People are going to recommend your product. Your product is going to go viral. You will be profitable, and so on and so forth. That's the start of your journey. And again, the most beautiful thing is there is no human dependency, which means, your customers are not talking to a person, and it does not depend on the mood of a person, right? If the mood of the person is good, the guy is, all happy and welcoming, but the person is having a bad day, and the guy goes like, all right, fine, you're on your own, please go check out the product that you want and let me know if you have any questions. You're not doing that. Your product is not doing that, regardless of what the mood or whatever the kind of the day that a product is having. Product is consistent, right? Your brand remains consistent, which means it will be able to do, better things for you. It will be doing good things for you, and I think that is something that we have to start focusing about. Now, what we discussed so far is first one is the laying the foundation of how do you productize your services. First, we discussed why. Second, we discussed how. Third, we discussed what. And these are the three things that you are delivering. What are you delivering? Functional outcome, emotional outcome, and the social outcome. This is the last point. How do you exactly, deliver or make it happen? We discussed what do we do. We spoke about, we actually spoke about the functional outcome of it. I gave you the clear tax example, but there are a lot of examples. If you look at, the difference between WhatsApp and Uber, these are, two extremely important part of our lives, right? We can't think of a day, without WhatsApp. We can't think of a day usually without an Uber. Yeah, these days it's different, but then technically Uber changed the definition of taxi services for us, right? Now we don't say let's take a taxi. We say let's Uber. Let's get an Uber, or let's get an Ola. This is what we do. This is what we say. And Uber, I think, is one of the most and the best examples of productization of a service. Taxi was a hardcore traditional service. It still is in most of the many parts of the world. But then the way Uber has productized a service is completely different. But then I want to also help you. I want you guys to also think about the difference in building of WhatsApp and the difference in building of an Uber. WhatsApp is a very small team serving almost 2 billion users. 2 billion people use WhatsApp to send billions of messages every day, every single day, right? And WhatsApp is supported by a team of less than 30 people, guys. The beauty of service, the beauty of a product that has, let's say, productize the messaging service. People are not sitting there, transmitting the messages as in when you send out a message. No, that's not happening, right? So these guys productized the most, conventional, the most traditional, the most, common way of talking to each other, which is messaging. And people use messages every single day, every single time, every single hour, right? And this is something that we're talking about. WhatsApp productized it. Now look at how Uber managed to productize it. What Uber did is again productization of service, but then there is a major between the WhatsApp and major difference between Uber. If Uber, grows the number of users, Uber also has to increase the capacity of its serviceability, right? Which means if Uber, has 100 customers or 100, users who are booking rides, it might need 10 cars. But then if Uber, acquires 1,000 customers, then probably Uber will have to add 100 cars, right? And then 100 drivers, and then the number of people supporting these 100 drivers and 100 customers, right? The number goes up proportionally, right? So that there is still a major and a considerable portion of service angle to the whole business model. Now this is the most important part of it. The business model defines what part of your business can be productized. The business model decides or defines how much of your business model, or how much of your business or service can be actually productized. It never force your service into productization. But what I believe is, and I have been very consciously doing this from a really really long time, I think about 6 months now into this research. And what I figure out is at least 80% of the businesses have a component that can be up to 40% productized, and that can take the productivity up by more than 30 or 40%, which is a big number, I think. And I'm talking about traditional business. I'm talking about business models that are let's say family owned, and that have very deep roots, that are not connected with technology, are not using or leveraging technology for now. I'm talking about services like those. I'm talking about those are the services that has this effect. But then if you're wanting to make it happen, this is what you should technically be doing. And this is most popularly called as Lollapalooza effect, right? I know it's a very funny name, and anybody who simply define what Lollapalooza effect means, anybody who has seen an IPL auction will understand what the effect is like, right? And whatever happens in an auction. So a group of people sitting and bidding on a particular a product, right? In this case, the product is the cricketer. In this case, the product is, let's say, a team, right? And there are contenders wanting to particularly bid on a particular product and then acquire it. Okay. So in this case, if you look at this guy, I'm not a cricket fan, so it's kind of funny. But then IPL auctions are one of the most I think best examples to define Lollapalooza effect, and that's why I'm choosing to do this. Right, with a base price of 2 crore rupees, this guy was sold at 15.5 crores in an IPL auction, right? And the whole process of auctioning comes into effect wherein there are a lot of people desiring for a product, right? Which means the bidding started at 2 crores, and then maybe there was somebody who offered 2.5, and then somebody who offered 3, 3.5, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it went until 15.5 crore rupees, guys, right? And I have a very strong feeling that while this happened, there might be maybe this team might not even have budgeted 15.5 crores for maybe this product, this guy, but then they go out and they make it happen, because that's exactly that's what we mean when we say that's Lollapalooza effect in action. We will break it down and see what exactly this effect means. Lollapalooza effect usually happens when your product starts demonstrating these few qualities, and this is exactly how you convert a user and make a permanent fan out of them. How? Establishing authority. Okay, so in an auction, there is a guy who establishes authority and says, I'm the guy, I'm the auctioneer, and then I will be doing things, and that is somebody who has verified the product that is being auctioned, that has verified the bidders or the contenders who are wanting the product. And usually most of the times people who are part of auctions, people who are part of let's say this bidding process, they go out of their way to acquire the product, right? They do that because that's a Lollapalooza effect in action. Okay, the guy establishes authority, and then immediately he demonstrates incentive. What's the incentive if we take in Pat Cummins, right? The cricketer that we saw on the previous slide. What's the incentive if we take him, right? You might probably already have the results. You might already probably have what exactly is going to be the outcome of if I take this product, or if I don't take this product, what's the cost of missing this product, and what's the cost of acquiring this particular product. And this is again one of the most famous or the most common things that we keep talking about at the hacking school. The hacking school, which is my primary business, right? It's a coding bootcamp, and a lot of people keep asking us, why do you charge so much, right? So we charge quite a fee, and that's the value to the quality that you can put. And the only thing that we tell people, and a lot of students, even they're like, no, I can't pay, that amount. It's costly. So the only thing that we tell them is, if you think this is costly, please, calculate the cost of not doing it. Please evaluate the cost of not doing it. Evaluate the cost of not acquiring this product, the loss that you will be, having or experiencing if you do not acquire this product, if you do not acquire this service, if you do not do this program, if you do not go through this course, is much more higher, right? And people who manage to see that immediately, all right, if you do this program, the return on investment is less than 3 months, and in less than a year, I'm making double, and then your CTC just goes up, shoots up, right? People who see that incentive jump on it, but not a lot of people are gifted with that ability. Not a lot of people are gifted with it. But people who usually go to auctions, people who are usually bidding at this, they do their research, they evaluate the risk and the rewards, and then they come up with a budget, which usually goes for a toss when you see your competitor bidding higher than you. Like I said, that brings me to my third point: the risk of not doing it, the risk of losing it out to your competitor. It's not just about the loss that you might be facing, the loss that you might be experiencing if you do not acquire it, but the loss that you will be facing if your customer acquires it, right? That aspirational component has to be established in your product. Your product has to establish authority. Your product has to demonstrate the incentive almost immediately, in less than, I would say, 3 steps. Your product has to also demonstrate the risk of not adopting your product automatically, without having a salesperson to convince your user to do it. That is what you're talking about, right? When your product actually starts doing all these things, you have built something that is let's say very close to a magic bullet, right? And it's not easy. Like I said, it's definitely not easy, and there are a lot of factors that come into play when you're productizing a particular service. But essentially, these are a few factors. Once you have demonstrated, once your product has said, what, if you lose this product, and usually people say, if you don't use this product, we have a limited cohort, and there are no more than 10 seats available, and 8 are already gone, and stuff like that. And let's say we already have 5 employers who booked a particular cohort, and they want all the students from a particular cohort. So it's pretty much focused on a particular employer, and pretty much assured and all of that. and we demonstrate the risk. And then comes the social proof, right? The proof of why whatever you're going to acquire should be acquired. And this is a proof that your product, technically demonstrates by showing by the virtue of somebody else who have already used your product and loves it, right? That's where, if I talk about the hacking school, there are a lot of people, who, and we don't, usually ask people to do this, but then people, our students go out of their way to do this, right? They write blog posts about, how we usually help them to become, a hardcore coder from coming from a non-coding background, coming from life sciences background, coming from banking, sector, coming from accounting background, and so on and so forth. How we, actually help them converge to coders. That's social proof. We are not talking about ourselves. We have already established authority. We have already established, delivered or demonstrated incentive. We have shown the risk of not doing it. But then social proof is something that you cannot do. Social proof is only dependent on your quality. Social proof is dependent on the kind of service or the name that you have made for yourself. And usually, if you are coming up with a new product, if you have not been in market before, then it becomes a little difficult for you to demonstrate social proof. But then these days there are a lot of apps, that do this. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this or not, but there are a lot of e-commerce websites that start showing pop-ups on the bottom right side of the screen that says somebody in Bangalore bought these shoes. Somebody in, let's say, Delhi bought this shirt. This jeans was bought 23 times yesterday. This jeans was bought 50 times yesterday, right? That means a lot of people are using it. That means a lot of people are liking it, right? And a lot of times media plays a very important role in doing that. But I don't trust media in doing that, because 90% of it is paid these days anyways. So let's not talk about it. But then you have to figure out a way to establish that social proof. You have to find a way to do that. Testimonials, user reviews, third party user reviews. Like I said, plugins like how many people bought your product or service, and how much do they like it, NPS. All these things go out of the way to demonstrate, prove that you guys are legit, right? And you are not going to run away. Scarcity and commitment. Your product also has to establish the fact that this is not a product that is available for all. This is something that, not meant for everybody. You have to figure that out, and that's exactly what we mean when we say product market fit, right? You have to figure out those core set of people, that specific set of your market where your product is going to fit like this, right? Like made for each other. And these are those people who say, we would be extremely disappointed if this product goes away. That's product market fit. If 40% if more than 40% of the people say yes, we will be extremely disappointed if this product goes away, then that's when technically it means your product has established product market fit. So the moment you're product market, it has to love it, right? Love it to a point that they tell you that what, please don't shut it. We love your product. We love we love it, and we will be extremely disappointed if you guys had to shut. And the last point, commitment. This is a bull that very few people manage to tame. Commitment, or getting a commitment from your market, getting a commitment from your users, getting a commitment from your let's say loyal customers, is one of the most difficult things that even most reputed brands find extremely difficult, right? While commitment also means, we are not talking about the commitment to continue to use your product even if your product sucks. No, that we are not talking about that. But the commitment to, not drop out when your competitor is offering, let's say, 10% discount or a 20% discount. Commitment to convert your user as soon as you can. All these factors actually, combine, all the six factors that we just spoke about: authority, incentive, risk, social proof, scarcity, and commitment. When you keep these things in mind, when you consciously develop and build, a feature that is, doing one of, these six at every single step of using your product, while delivering a world-class experience as the, guy goes on, moves on forward, that's when you have a world-class product. That's when you have a product that people love. That's when, you have a product that's going to make every user of your product, not just your customer, but also your ambassador. They will be going out of their way to sell your product. That's when you gain word of mouth. That's when your profit margins swell. That's when you gain your critical mass as soon as possible. That's when, that's what we say snowball effect. Your product keeps going forward and automatically starts, acquiring users on its way, right? You don't have to put in additional efforts. The only effort that you'll have to make is focus on improving the quality of the services that your product is delivering. So these were the slides, guys. Lastly, I would say, and this is something again really really important. Productization of service need not be technical. Okay, it need not be technical. I run a coding bootcamp, and we are India's first coding bootcamp. I take extreme pride in saying that, which means that's my bread and butter. Training people on, technology education is my bread and butter. Even then, I go out and say this: not everything needs to be coded from day one. There are a lot of tools that can help you productize your service that are in the market. There are a lot of no code platforms that you can leverage to your benefit, that you can use to your benefit, and productize your service, at least for the first few versions, at least for the MVP, at least for the prototype of at least when you are building a prototype to productize your service. Don't go out, hire extremely costly developers. Don't go out and go out and build this lavish and super flashy product. Don't do that from day one, until and unless you have already gained a good user base. There are a lot of no code tools that help you build products effortlessly, right? A simple search for no code platform will give you a lot of them. I'll give you a few examples. Makerpad is one. Glide apps is another one. Bubble is extremely beautiful. It lets you build custom applications, or build you custom products without you having to know how to code, right? Because if you have been if you are somebody who's been running a business, then you might not want to go out and learn how to code, or hire product developers and make all of that happen without you knowing if it will work for you or not. So this is something that people would want to do. This is something that I really would suggest. You don't go out and start coding things from day zero, until and unless you have established the whole fact that this is a product that I can replace a part of my service with. Until and unless you have established, you have proof of it happening. Do not do that. You don't have to go out and start building things. And this is extremely non-technical. Okay, it need not be keep this on top of your minds. It need not be technical. Even if you are tempted to do it, please do not do it. No code is the way to go. Least for your minimum viable product, for your prototype number one, for your version number one, and for your prototypes. Please keep a check on that temptation to go out and build your products. So that was the last comment. And if you were to ask me how do I do that, let's say we are a service where we have to talk to a lot of people. One of the most beautiful productization of a service component is a chatbot. Pick up a chatbot, train it, and then put it right, and then you will see the number of visitors on your website, or the number of people converting using a chatbot will double the number of serviceable people, right? If one of your agents can talk to 10 people per day, a chatbot can take that number to 200, which means even if you're converting 1% of 10, and then you automatically start converting 1% of 200, it takes your numbers up, guys. As simple as that. Chatbot is one of the most beautiful examples of productization of a service component, right? Which is talking to people, right? But there will be a lot of time where a lot of your customers might want to talk to a real human, right? So take them through a set of a process which will demonstrate commitment, which will demonstrate authority, which will demonstrate incentive, wherein they are automatically gaining that trust. So the number of questions that they have are only those questions that you can't find on, let's say, your website, or are those questions that people that nobody knows and only you can answer, right? So stuff like that, and that's one of the most simplest examples. But then there are a ton of such applications, right? You can use Zapier integration with your Google Forms, and boom, you can literally have automate any process, right? There was another tool that automated a lot of things, which was called if this then that, right? It's just a set of if and else statements that you put in, and that automates a lot of things, right? Eliminates human being from stops or prevents human being from doing silly stuff. Like I said, if there are things that machines can do, then you have to let machines do those things. Human beings should only be doing machine. So that brings me to the session.
Thank you so much, Miraj, for the session. That was amazing, and I hope this is insightful. And I really love the way you represented your company with your clients. Um, with this, we can end this session, guys. If you have any questions,
I don't think I got your question. Can you?
yes, if you have any questions, please comment down so that Miraj can answer it. Okay, since we don't have any questions, let's end this here and we can answer the questions face to face. Thank you, Miraj. Thank you, guys.
For having me. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye.